Welcome to the Mindset by Design podcast with your host, the expert Andy Murphy, where you will learn the tips, tricks, and strategies he teaches his world-class clients to give you the skills to dominate any business.
What's going on, Mindset by Design crew, and welcome to episode 252. Hope you're amazing as always. We are on the last day of October. Crazy. It's the 31st, I should say. It's the 31st today. Hope you're having an amazing day, and I hope you've had an amazing month. I really do. It's that time of year that we can hustle. It's that time of year we can relax. You know, everyone starts to focus, as I've mentioned so many times on the podcast over the past few episodes, that everyone starts to focus on what? Taking a week off over Christmas. Well, the truth is that we should be focused on utilizing 2 more months. That's 8 weeks. 7 weeks if you take a week off, right? That's 7 weeks to really, really set up and make next year your best year ever, right? Or if you've kicked ass this year and you just like, you know what, Andy, I just want to take some time off, then you should do it. But I just want you to, yes, I'm going on a rant straight away, everybody. I get it. But you should make sure that the decisions that you're making are coming from the right driver. Now, what do I mean by a driver? I mean the emotional response inside of you that makes you decide to do something or not. It also makes you have a certain belief or not. It makes you have a certain focus, a certain way you talk to yourself and everything else. And the truth is, you've got to make decisions out of growth, not fear. And fear could be escapism. It could be sabotage. It could be talking yourself out of actually doing the things that you know you're supposed to be doing, right? And it becomes very easy when the future, like next year, man, you might be sitting there going, do you know what, next year I'm going to go and kick ass, but right now I just need some time off, right? I get it. But what would happen if you saw next year, and instead of it being big and daunting and overwhelming, which is probably the reason that you want to take lots of time off and hide and escape and do all that stuff. But what would happen if you reprogrammed your mind, or got a new mindset by design, and all you saw about next year was fun, right? Abundance, success, happiness. Imagine if all that you saw next year was money pumping in, incredible friendships, networks, being able to travel anywhere you want in the world, freedom. Now, think about that, right? What emotion does that bring up when I say those things? Does it bring up fear and dread? No, it brings up excitement and confidence. So understand, if you were to think about your business, your income, your future, and definitely next year, this way, do you think that you might push a little bit harder? Right? Do you think you might do those extra little details that make all the difference with marketing and branding and especially mental performance? Right? Of course you would. But if you're looking at next year and you're full of dread, right? Hopes, but you're like, I hope this chaos doesn't happen again as it did this year. I hope, you know what I mean? I hope that I keep the money in my bank. I hope that my boss doesn't fire me. I hope that that product launch is okay. I hope that I get the next sale. When you say those words, hope, what's the dominant emotion? What's the biggest emotion that's coming up? Right? Think about this. What's the biggest emotion that's coming up when you say the word hope? It's fear, right? Resistance. And when you can start to really understand this, is a key distinction that gets missed in mental performance and performance in general. Because everyone talks about the strategies, the systems, and all of that is so, so important. It's so, so important, right? But the truth is, you're not going to do any of those things to your optimal or maximum ability if you haven't got control of your brain. Does this make sense? If your brain is wired and it's focusing on the mistakes or the past or the pain or the limits that you're putting around what's possible in your income stream or the expectation that you've put onto somebody without taking full responsibility for the system that they're running or the contract or whatever it is, and then I hope that they are able to do it. I hope the ad works. I hope, right? But in business, we can't hope. Now, we can get lucky, and that's a different thing. But I really believe luck is, we make our luck ourselves. I really believe that. And a gentleman I absolutely love, I'm not in love, but I love, his name's Rob Dyrdek. And I've followed Rob for a long, long time, You might know him from the MTV shows, Ridiculous or Fantasy Factory or Rob and Big. You might know him from the Skate League, or you might know him as an entrepreneur. You might know him through I think he's got like 20 world records, And that's the way you might know Rob Dyrdek that way. You also might know that Rob's worth about 50 million plus, and he's just an incredible marketer, entrepreneur, and more than that, he's an incredible person because it's all about his mindset. Like 100%, he doesn't call it mindset, he calls it systems, right? But systems of what? Systems of visualizing correctly in the morning. What's the point in visualizing? Well, we are building the mind muscle, right? The neurology, the nervous system, how to respond a certain way, what chemicals to produce. And if you're not doing that in every day, before every meeting, every morning, every night, then what you're not doing is you're not tuning your brain to its optimum capacity. That's not high performance. And if you could look back on now in 2 years, what do you wish you would have been doing now with your routines? The audios that you're playing, the words that you're saying to yourself, right? The images that you've got in your head, the people that you're hanging around with, the TV programs, the books, the courses, the seminars. How are you building your brain? That's why I created this podcast. Been going for 5 years now, but that's why I created this podcast, to be able to help you see a different way, to gain the knowledge that wasn't available to, when I first started this game 17 years ago, And my whole point is, I just want you to have such a beautiful mind that you have such an amazing business. You have a freedom that you want to do and you want to have, so you can travel and be wherever you want to be in the world. That's my whole goal. Why though? Why? Well, I really believe entrepreneurism and entrepreneurs are the people that's going to help change this world. It's a little bit wild and crazy out there right now. Don't know if you've noticed. I'm sure you have. And every country is radically different, but I really believe that if every entrepreneur and every person lives to their optimum, lives to their peak, their highest performance, then what happens is that creates a huge ripple effect. And that huge ripple effect across the world is what changes culture. It's what changes like the new generation's thinking, right? So we're leaving this crazy out of date, egotistical, money dominating, planet poisoning culture. That's the new modern way of thinking just doesn't want anything to do with it. And what we're trying to do is solve it, right? So I really believe that entrepreneurs are going to do that. And I don't know what business you've got right now, but I have to ask that question because I want you to ask it yourself. Are you giving it everything you've got? And you might go, yeah, Andy, I work in long hours. I get it. But go back to Rob Dyrdek. Everything he does is fully optimized, right? We're talking a guy whose massive success yet he only works 9 to 5. So he doesn't miss any of his family time. That's massively important to him. And he's optimizing everything. And he said on this interview the other day, which was really, really cool. He gives it, obviously, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, gets asked to do 1 or 2 interviews, right? And he says to most of them, of course, no. And they're like, why? And he gives it, because I don't have time. And they're like, what do you mean you don't have time? He goes, I'm trying to optimize everything. I'm even trying to optimize my toothbrushing in the morning. So think about that, man, right? It's a statement I say, I've said it for years and years, and I made it up years ago. But it is, we get what we're ready to receive, you know? And I've mentioned this again many times in the past, but I want you to I reiterate points again and again and again, because just because you hear them doesn't make it common knowledge. It makes it common knowledge. It doesn't make it common practice. And I want this to be embedded in your brain, so you're thinking, feeling, and acting with me very, very differently, your highest level. So when we look at optimization, it's optimizing you, right? Because the business can be optimized, but if you're not optimized, you can't optimize the business, which means your brain isn't firing the right way. So that's my rant for today. But why am I telling you all this? Why am I telling you this, crew? Well, today we're going to talk about something very interesting. One of the key things that I talk about or train and teach and mentor around is, when we're talking with high performance and entrepreneurs in general, is the ability to perform under high level pressure. Now, I've worked with a lot of different people over the years, a lot of traders, a lot of people who have to consistently perform in sales or the expansion of a business or whatever it is. And the thing is, in those moments, right there, in that moment where there's so much pressure on them to perform, understand, yes, we've got to have a pre-designed software in our brain, the neural nets. We've got to have a pre-designed unconscious mind. We do. And we've got to have everything around us to make sure that we can be congruent to what we want. But in the moments, and what changes our focus and who we are, is the language that we speak. Yep, the language that we speak. And when we start to understand that, and we start to understand around 66% of what we say for the general population is on repeat and negative. And when we start to understand from my side that every word that we say is connected to software in the brain, or a movie, or an image. It has certain perspectives, views, self-talk. It has certain way we value ourselves. It also has certain emotional attachment, right? So every word that we say to ourselves, around 54,000 images or thoughts we have, which is every thought has words, right? So when we're saying those things to ourselves, it's creating an emotional reaction in us, right? That emotional reaction makes us really see the world such a radically different way. Think about it. When you're stressed out, how do you think about the future, right? How do you think about your relationship? How do you think about, do you want to go to the gym, or what do you want to do when you're stressed out, right? It's such a different world to when you're excited. Maybe you haven't seen someone in a long time and you're really excited to see them. What's that emotion, right? How does that make you see the world? Make sense? So the biggest thing we've got to understand is, in those moments of high pressure performance, it's the language that we say to ourselves consciously and unconsciously, right? So what's playing automatically, that is affecting either behind the scenes or right there in front of your face. It directly affects the world that we're living in, or your view of the world that you're living in. So today's episode is all about this to a new level, okay? Now, the science it's an article that I really like, and it's a little outdated, meaning that it's a few years ago. But the truth is, the knowledge behind it is exactly the same, and it will have improved on. But this is how DNA reprograms, well, by words, right? Think about that. How your DNA is reprogrammed by words. And what we used to think years ago, and we're going to go into this in the episode, but they used to think DNA structure was, fixed, right? Blue eyes, brown heads, fixed. But that also was diseases and everything else. But what they know now is that DNA is absolutely 100% malleable, and we have certain gene expressions, which we'll go into in a moment. And that literally we can alter. We can alter how we respond to the world, or how our body responds to the world. And if you want to go way down the rabbit hole these days, have you heard of CRISPR? You not heard of CRISPR? CRISPR's crazy. This is going to be the next radical shift in human evolution. It might be faster than AI. Actually, it probably will be faster than AI. This is gene editing. Think about this. This is gene editing. This long term will be, you can obviously take out diseases, but in the long term, you could literally change skin color, height, muscle structure, eye colors. You could make someone who's predispositioned to be 5 foot. You could make them 7 foot. This is, by the way, this is already happening. Okay, so genetic manipulation is where this is all going. But what we're talking about today is how words directly affect and reprogram your DNA. Sound good? Beautiful. So I'm excited about this, and we'll go through this in a few moments. And what else I'm excited about is helping you. Right now, we've got a whole rebrand going on, but what I want to really let you know about is a couple of different things before we launch the membership academy, before we launch the high performance teams, before we relaunch the 8-figure thinker. Guess what else is there? Yeah, and it's getting more and more limited. It's actually working with me. Yeah, it's a rare thing. It really is, but you can. And especially right now for the next month, 2 months, you got my time as I'm putting everything else together. So what I want to offer you is something very special. But it's only available for a few different people. And the first thing is it's only available for you. Well, you have to be a high performer. You have to already be successful, right? I'm not an average normal coach. And that means I'm not telling you, let's think happy things. No, that's not what I do. I create results. So if you're a high performer already and your business is blowing up, it's expanding rapidly, and you need to make sure that your already strong mind is so sharp and dialed in and it's expanding as your business is blowing up. If that's you, we need to chat. Click that link in the show notes and apply to that. Let's have a chat together and we'll see what the right fit is for you. The other thing is, if you are a high performer again and you know you're a badass, but you've dipped in results, and for whatever reason you've dipped in those results, and you know you have the ability to not only bounce back, but you want to have the tools to be able to go to a level that you've always dreamt about. Now, if either of those things are you, hit those show notes up. Make sure that you are, applying, and I know I'll speak to you very soon. And we've got lots of different options, possibilities for you. So, hey, whether it's me or one of my coaches, let's have a chat. Sound good? Beautiful. Also, make sure that you're hanging out in the Incubator group on Facebook, finding me on Instagram. It's Andy Murphy Mindset on Instagram. Incubator group on Facebook. I'm going to be starting doing, I haven't done them in maybe a year, but I'm going to start doing really regular trainings and videos in there. So now is a beautiful time to jump in. So head over to those show notes, click on all the links that you feel are right for you, whatever level you're stepping up to. And yeah, I know I'll talk to you soon. So should I shut up and get on with the show? I thought you might say that. Let's jump in and I'll see you at the end. Okay, crew, here we are. Let's jump into this. So this is an article which I found. It's by Waking Times. You know, they've got like 80,000 followers on Instagram, and actually on Facebook they got 618,000. So they're doing all right. You know, they've been around for a long time. But this article is very, very interesting. And with everything, again, advances and changes happen, especially because this is a few years old. But I really like it because it obviously you're going into the neuroscience side of it. And yeah, I just like it because the power of understanding the language, again, neuro-linguistic programming, right? NLP. It's that's what I'm a world-class expert at. And language is such a definitive role in how we communicate with ourselves and others. And if you don't really know detailed language about something, it's very hard or near impossible to actually describe it to its fullest. Think about that, right? If you didn't know anything about a car engine and someone's talking about all the parts and the intricate details about a car engine, I don't know nothing about cars, but I was driving, by the way. But if you don't, then I don't know the language, so I can't describe the actual parts of the car correctly, right? Because each part of the car is separate with a different word, and it has its own distinct meaning. And then there's specific jargon that's connected to the motor industry probably behind it, right? So when you start to understand that, language is everything. It makes the world around us. You know, we can describe things, textures and colors and feelings. But what we got to understand is that this is all playing on automatic in the background of your head, right? And it's not until we become consciously aware of it. Remember, we've got a conscious and we have an unconscious mind. Conscious mind is what? You got it. That bit of the mind that me and you are talking in right now, right? And guess what your unconscious mind is? What is it? You got it. It's the software that plays in the background of our head. So your nervous system, your neurology, your mind muscle, whatever the heck you want to call it, right? But this is the automatic part of our brain. And so what we got to understand is it's so powerful, and there's been so many studies about it. But let's jump into this article. I'm going to read it. I'm going to jump in, and you know the deal by now. You know how I do these. So the genome is actually packed with at least 4 million gene switches, right? This is gene expression, okay? So, and that resides in bits of our DNA that really weren't looked at, and they thought that it was junk. Now, what they know with DNA is that every single part of it is absolutely critical. It plays critical roles in controlling how cells, organs, and tissues actually behave. The thing is, the discovery considered a major medical scientific breakthrough as enormous implications for human health and consciousness, because many complex diseases appear to be caused by tiny changes in hundreds of these gene switches, or what they know now is called gene expression, right? The thing is, as scientists delved into this, what they used to think was junk, right, which is insane, what they've worked out is that it's actually a really complex system. And at least 80% of the DNA is active and needed another 15 to 17% as a higher function that scientists are still decoding. Now, whatever that means, right? Whatever that means to you. We're coming with waking times. So waking times is all about high level consciousness. Okay. So his article is all about consciousness. Now, am I all about consciousness? Absolutely I am. Absolutely. But what we've got to do is take the woo-woo out of it, and we've really got to make our own view of what spirituality is or consciousness from our own lessons, our own perspectives, our own experiences, because I don't really believe that humans have a clue what they're talking about. But hey, the way closer to understanding what this crazy soup of the universe is, So these Russian researchers came up with a pretty revolutionary conclusion. According to them, the DNA, or our DNA, is not only responsible for the construction of our body, but also serves as data storage in our communication. The Russian linguists found that the genetic code, especially in the apparently useless, what they used to call useless, right? The other 15 to 17% of the DNA follows the same rules as all our human languages. Think about this. This is crazy. So, comparing this, the rules of syntax, the way in which words are put together in the form and phrases and sentences, semantics, the study of meaning in language forms, and the basic rules of grammar, they found that the alkalines of our DNA follow a regular grammar, and they do not have a set rule, and they do have set rules like in our own language. So human language does not appear coincidentally, but they're a reflection of our DNA. This is what this article is hypothesizing, and that's, hey, we'll go with it, right? We'll see where it goes. But Russian biophysicist and molecular biologist. Now, I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce this name. I really don't. So what I'm doing, as I went onto Google, I typed in how to say this word, and so I'm going to put it next to the speaker on the Mac, and I'm going to actually get Google to pronounce it correctly. But I'm going to spell this, and this is why I can't pronounce it. P-J-O-T-R, second name or last name, G-A-R-J-A-J-E-V. Do you want to say it again? I'm going to say it again so you can practice and try. P-J-O-T-R-G-A-R-J-A-J-E-F. E-F? I mean E-B. See, even getting confused reading the letters. So, this is it. This is in Russian, first of all. I'm going to play it again. You got that? Yeah? So any Russians out there, I apologize massively. I might be from England, but hey, I can barely speak English, so this is what it is in English.
Pyotr Gurayev.
Say it again.
Pyotr Gurayev.
One more time.
Pyotr Gurayev.
Let's do the Russian. English.
Pyotr Gurayev.
So do you understand why I couldn't pronounce it? I thought you might. So anyway, Pyotr Gurayev and his colleagues also explored the vibrational behavior of the DNA. The bottom line was living chromosomes function just like a holographic computer using the indigenous DNA laser radiation. The heck does that mean? This means that they managed, for example, to modulate certain frequency patterns onto a laser ray, and it was influenced with the DNA frequency, and thus the genetic information itself. Since the basic structure of DNA, alkaline pairs, and language, as explained earlier, are the same structure, no DNA decoding is necessary. Because what it's talking about is that alkaline part having basically its own language and its own structure. So they didn't need to decode it, right? So finally, finally and scientifically explains why affirmations and training, hypnosis, and such things have such strong effect on the humans and their bodies. It is entirely normal and natural for our DNA to react to language. Well, Western researchers cut single genes from the DNA strands and insert them elsewhere. That's what I was talking about before, by the way, with CRISPR. The Russians enthusiastically worked on devices they can influence the cellular metabolism through suitable modulated radio and light frequencies, and thus repair genetic defects. This is going down a different path for sure, and I'm going to bring it all back together. But what were they trying to say in this article? Its DNA is programmed by words and frequencies, okay? And I really believe everything's a vibration, everything's a frequency. So when we start to use this a little bit out there thinking, and we can actually just start to expand our mind, and maybe words are not just affecting how we feel. Words might actually be affecting our genetic code. Words also might be affecting our frequency. Now, think about that. You might be going, what the hell are you talking about, Andy? A frequency. Yes, a frequency. I'll say it again, a frequency. So if you look at a gentleman called Dr. David Hawkins, okay? An incredible guy, the author of so many of my favorite books. Power versus Force is his most famous. And what he's worked out from kinesiology, and this guy run hospitals, he was a psychiatrist, incredible, fascinating guy. And what he basically worked out through kinesiology, which was muscle testing, was what frequencies, from people who were enlightened to geniuses, right down to some people who were absolutely depressed or in the lowest state of their life. Everything had a tangible vibration or frequency that he was able to measure. Go and check it out. It's incredible studies. And I have people around me in my networks and friends who were crazy money. I was going to say silly money, but it's not silly money. It's just a lot of money. And this is what they live by. This is stuck on their wall, this frequency code, and they're constantly about up-leveling. And so when you start to look at this, maybe there's more to the world or the universe or ourselves than what we really begin to understand. And I really believe in language affects frequency. I teach this. I've taught this for years and years. And if we're saying like horrible things like you suck, right? It does two things. One, it makes our focus go onto that word, which is connected to probably an old memory or trauma. And it also affects the way we feel and the way we see the world. It does. I also did a podcast not so long ago, a few episodes ago. I'll have to find it. But it was about what they've shown. This was a Forbes study. What they showed was that when we are actually negative, our DNA strands actually constrict. When we are positive and happy and saying the right things to us, the words actually are the words do too, but our genetic actual strands expand. What does that mean? Well, I don't know what that means. But think about how all of this jigsaw puzzle starts to come together from all of these different sides. And if we start to understand that the words are that powerful, they're actually affecting our DNA strands. It's affecting our frequencies. And then we've got to be so protective and careful who we're around, what we're saying, what we're watching. Because all of this is creating changes biologically, physiologically, and neurologically. Then what happens is we have to really pay attention to everything that's around us inside and out. Because if one of my mates is worth a silly amount of money, silly, say I use that word, it's not, it's an amazing amount of money, and this is what he lives by, then we've got to start putting jigsaw pieces together, right? It just makes sense. So now it gets a little bit crazy because, this study goes deep and researching groups, listen to this, these succeeded in providing that with this method, chromosomes damaged by X-rays, for example, can be repaired. They even captured information patterns of a particular DNA and transmitted it onto another, thus reprogramming cells to do to another genome. They were successful in transforming, well, frog embryos to salamander embryos simply by transmitting the DNA information patterns. This way, the entire information was transmitted without any side effect. So the study goes on, and the article goes on, and it's I pulled up another 4 articles. But what I'm going to do instead, because it goes way down the rabbit hole, with splicing embryos, and then basically what the Russians were able to do is use the genetic code and basically put it into anything and repair. Now, how accurate these studies are, I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure, but I'm an open book, and that's why I wanted to just open the book to it. But what I am sure about is that there is frequency. Our brain is affected genetically and everything else by the words that we say. That even showing depression is actually a loop of internal dialogue. So a loop of self-talk that's negative self-talk. So when you start to get this, it affects how you think, how you feel, how you act, your presence, your health, your relationships, your money, your next sale. When you really begin to understand that everything in and outside of our body is directly affecting us, then what we need to do is get a little lesson around our self-talk. So that's what I'm going to do. So let me give you a quick 8-figure thinker lesson from this. Whether I've shown this before, I've possibly played clips from the 8-figure thinker around this, I don't know. I'm just going to go through a few basic points for you, okay? And I want you to be able to apply them today, right? Plain and simple. I want you to be able to utilize this knowledge, well, instantly, right? Because understand this. As human beings, first of all, we are question answering machines. It's true. Think about this. You cannot think about what you don't want to think about it without thinking about it. Think about that. Andy, what did you just say? Listen, you cannot think about what you don't want to think about without thinking about it. Think about that. Right? Do you understand? You cannot think of a ninja jumping up and down with a pink bow without thinking about it, right? Think of a ninja. Think of a ninja. Think of a ninja. Makes sense? So it's the same with everything about language. Because what we say, our brain tries to answer. Remember, we are question answering machines. A classic example I've used a million times is, what are you going to have for dinner next February the 24th? You're like, I haven't got a clue, Andy. Right, I'm sure you don't, unless you're one of those OCD people who know exactly what they eat in dinner every day. But the truth is, we don't. But it's called the transderivational search. And what that means is that your brain goes out and starts to try to answer it. It searches, okay? So when we start to understand that we are question answering machines, we have to begin to understand that, well, we best be starting to ask the right damn questions and become consciously aware of the words that we're saying to ourselves, to other people that we're aware of, and also the ones we're not aware of until we become aware of the pattern, right? So what you've got to understand is that your thoughts directly affect, well, your beliefs. They affect your beliefs about yourself, about something, or about what's most important to you. This directly affects your actions and behaviors, which directly affects your feelings and emotions, and then that affects your thoughts, right? Which directly affects what? Your self-talk. So when we understand that we say around 50,000 words to ourselves a day, depending on who we are, depending on the thoughts that we have, depending, right? It's a case of, that's a lot of words, right? And if we're roughly around, 70 to 80% of the self-talk is negative. And we're on 66% of it is on repeat. man, this should blow your mind how important this is. And what have I just told you about what the Russians have been up to and everybody else? It's a case of and what did I tell you about a study that I from Forbes that I presented? I was going to say, did an episode on, right, about the DNA constricting or growing, right, expanding. It's everything is affecting. If you was talking to yourself, oh, I don't know, I just can't do this. I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to be judging me. They're going to look bad against me if I get this wrong. And then you pick the phone up to do a sales call. How do you think that's going to go? It's not going to go very well. So why is it that you aren't taking responsibility for your self-talk? Well, the thing is about self-talk, it's just like a surgical knife. It can kill you or it can cure you. And these emotions can be triggered instantly in yourself in a negative or positive way. They can damage you, they can motivate you. But when we start to understand that every cell and fiber feels the joy or the pain instantly, which is what they know now, is that the brain replicates the message and it affects our cells instantly. This is, why people look in the mirror and it doesn't matter what the body look like, but they feel that they're fat, But I know a lot of big people who don't care about that, and they're so happy and confident and full of self-worth that it just radiates from them. So understand this. It's the words that we say to ourselves directly affect the emotion. You getting that yet? So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And these 3 questions I want you to really think about, okay? Because if you start to think about these 3 questions and you get answers to them, then, you can start to pay attention to what words inside of your head you need to use more, write down, stick on a wall so you become aware of them, or what patterns the words come up for. Meaning, if you are about to pick that phone up and constantly you find yourself talking yourself out of the deal, then guess what? It's a case of we need to become aware of that pattern, and we need to be able to change the words in the moment which direct our focus, our beliefs, our emotion, and everything else, right? And what we're about to do next. So, get your thinking caps on now. Here's my 3 questions. And it might be 3 questions you've never, ever thought about before. Why? Because people don't ask you this stuff, right? Unless you're working with me in some capacity. So, from a movie, from real life, from the past, from a character you made up in your head, from a book, think about this for a moment. Maybe you want to pause this, and maybe you want to go over it again. But whose voice motivates you? You're like, what? Yes, whose voice motivates you? Don't matter what you think about Donald Trump, right? But if you like Donald Trump, that voice is going to motivate you. It also might do the opposite, right? It might piss you off and push you away. Doesn't matter. That voice is very prominent and dominant. So, again, I don't do accents besides my funny one. But guess what? I'm not going to do it now, but I could maybe even do an impression of that. That's how apparent his voice is. So what voices is it for you? Is it someone, an old coach, sports? Is it a parent? Is it a loved one? Is it someone who gave you a reality check? Whose voice motivates you? Is it someone out of a movie? Is it someone on TV? You get the idea. So who is it? Say their name. Okay. Now, say a statement that they might say if they were sitting in front of you now, and you know what? It's like you were about to do that really important thing. Call, sales, whatever it is, right? Imagine them saying it now. Imagine them saying that motivational thing to you. Just imagine them saying it as you're thinking about doing that thing next, right? Say it again. I want you to notice now how fast or how slow their voice is. What's the timbre of their voice, the raspiness, like Sean Connery raspiness? What's the pitch? What's the tempo? You know, start to pay attention to all of these things, because if you repeat that in the same way inside of your head, it's going to create the same reaction, okay? So what about this next question? And this is just becoming consciously aware of your patterns. Whose voice from the past is the loudest when you feel that you're about to move forwards in life or you're about to do something? Whose voice from the past is the loudest? Silly question? It's not a silly question. Because you might be thinking about money right now, and that money can be connected to, maybe it was a parent, maybe it's a memory. And that parent said to you, oh, we're poor, oh, we're broke, we can't afford that, right? So every time you think about money, that voice is connected to it, right? Is that empowering you or disempowering you? You get the idea? So we have to become consciously aware, because you might be going to do that deal and this voice pops up and it's making you feel a certain way. It's affecting your DNA. It's affecting your frequency. It's affecting your focus. It's affecting your neurology. It's affecting your chemicals. It's going to affect your result. Make sense? Good. So start to pay attention to this, right? So whose voice from the past is the loudest? Probably the negative one. But it could be whose voice from the past is the most motivating, right? So the third question is, what have you told yourself in dark times to keep pushing? I'll say it again. What have you told yourself, or what has somebody told you in a good way in dark times that's kept you pushing forwards? And you might be going, Andy, I don't know, I'm in there right now. Well, if you are right there right now, if you are there right now, you need to click on the show notes and have a chat with me. Especially if you're high performing, you've dipped, and those dark times, you're in it right now. I've been there so many times myself, all over the world for 17 years, and I know how to rebuild. I know how to create success again, anyway, you know my story. But I want you to start paying attention to those words, right? So I'll give you one more. If you were to step out now in your imagination, just allow yourself now to just engage your imagination and get creative, and you were allowed to just step in just for a moment. Just step in for a moment now, that real, ultimate, 8-figure, world-class thinking you. The one that's got everything going, everything happening. The money's pumping, your health is amazing, the relationship, the freedom. You've got the houses, the cars, the lifestyle, everything that you desire. You're helping all of those people, thousands, if not millions of people. When you think of that version of you, what's their belief about themselves? What do they tell themselves? What's the wisdom there? And what would you be telling yourself about the next project that you're about to do, that if you did, would make you feel so powerful, so inspired, so motivated, so driven to be able to do what? Anything you want. Do you see the power? I'm just giving a tiny little explanation, but do you see the power of words? You know what I mean? They're not even your words, but they're somebody's words that your brain has adopted. And we can use that to empower us, disempower us. We can use that to motivate, or we can use that to destroy ourselves. And as entrepreneurs, we're very fickle creatures, right? We're very fickle creatures, What did I describe to somebody the other day? I said, an actor tries to be anybody else but themselves, right? A stand-up comic tries to be authentically who they are. They try to be themselves. An entrepreneur tries to be the best version of themselves. That's it, right? So understand we're fragile, but we've got to make ourselves strong, rock solid. And to be like a samurai warrior, a samurai warrior wasn't just an assassin, but they were assassins. They were also poets. They also were artists. They also did calligraphy. They also meditated. That was a balance. So the language that they used inside their head in every single moment was very different depending on what they were about to do, right? So what I want you to do is start really paying attention from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. And then change that language, because the language will direct your focus. The focus will direct your emotion. The emotion will direct your belief and attitude towards who you're about to be. Does that make sense? So put all this together. Understand that we talked about David Hawkins' frequency before. Then everything around you suddenly will start to click into place when you understand the power of language. So crew, there we are, the end of episode 252. It went on a few different random tangents, but hey, we got there in the end. And I really hope that you got something out of that and you understood there was so different, many topics we could have gone down with it, but the key thing is that language is affecting everything. So you got to get control of it, plain and simple. And speaking of getting control of it, make sure that you're getting control of your business, your mind, and your life. And if you're a high performer right now, then guess what? You're one of two things. You're either kicking ass and you are expanding fast. And because of that expansion, we need to make sure that your sharp mind is really laser sharp. And you need to chat with me. So click that link in the show notes. The other thing is, if you're a high performer and you know you're a badass, you know it, but you've dipped in results for whatever reason, and you want to bounce back, and you just need the tools to not just bounce back, but to go to a whole nother level, the one that you've always dreamt about going to. Well, if that's you, then you are very lucky because I can still do a couple of these calls. So I want you to head over to those show notes, click that link which says mentoring, apply, and guess what? I know I'll talk to you very, very soon. Sound good? Awesome. You have a beautiful week and much, much love. And until the next time, oh yeah, why don't you smile for me?
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of the Mindset by Design podcast with your host and NLP expert, Andy Murphy. We'll catch you next time.